What is up, besties? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Scotty Holiday. I'm a queer creator and a huge Star Wars nerd, so if you're into either one of those things, please consider liking and subscribing for more. Today we got chapter 24, the Mandalorian season 3 finale, titled The Return, and this episode surprisingly wrapped up everything pretty well. Not only did the visuals and action sequences really hit in this episode, even the music was super epic. But before I get into my review, leave a comment letting me know what you thought of the finale. I've put out weekly reviews for The Mandalorian Season 3 and you can check those out, along with all my Mando content at the link in the cards and the description as well. Now let's get into this review. Chapter 24 picks up where we left off in Chapter 23, with Bo-Katan and the other Mandos trying to escape the Imperial facility on Mandalore. Bo contacts Axe Woves about their discovery and alerts him of Gideon's survival and the TIE squadron headed for the Mandalorian fleet. Bo orders him to evacuate the fleet, explaining though they can't beat Gideon in the air, they can beat him on the ground. I don't know about y'all, but seeing little Axe Woves flying through the stormy upper atmosphere was a little stressful. I'd be so scared to be struck by lightning, but maybe Beskar isn't a conductor. The Mandos' escape from the base felt super tense, and I really loved seeing Bo and Koska Reeves working together again to take out the Imperial commandos as they made their way through the underground passages. We catch up with Din as he starts to gain consciousness, being dragged through the Imperial base by Gideon's commandos. He tries to take the guards out, putting up a surprisingly good fight given the circumstances and his lack of weapons, but they're able to overpower him, and just when it seems like Din's lost the fight, Grogu actually comes to his rescue. After taking out the last commando, Din tells Grogu, "I'm going to need you to be brave for me," and then asks him, "Are you with me?" And this was a really sweet moment between the two of them. We see a super cool sequence of Gideon's fighters launching, taking off out of the base as Gideon himself looks over a holo map, tracking Din and Grogu, vowing to take care of them on his own. Seeing Din and Grogu sneak through the facility felt very A New Hope, especially when Din calls for R5's help to locate the base command center. I love how this season has continued to portray R5-D4 as the reluctant droid's sidekick, and how Din is even like, "I can't understand you, but I'm counting on you." And I love the addition of R5's rocket boosters that I didn't expect to see. By this point, Axe Woves has reached the fleet, ordering the evacuation to reinforce Bo and the other Mandalorian troops on the ground below. I really love this sequence of all the Mandos flying out of the light cruiser toward the Gauntlet starfighters, watching all the ships descend into Mandalore's cloudy upper atmosphere. As Gideon's fleet arrives and begins attacking the light cruiser, I got a bit nervous for Axe Woves, especially after seeing Paz Vizsla sacrifice himself in Chapter 23. I was worried this was going to be Axe's episode to do the same, but we'll talk more on that later. From here we catch up with Din and Grogu inside the Imperial base as they've finally made it to the corridor leading to Moff Gideon's command center, you know, the one lined with ray shields and armored commandos. Din instructs R5 to deactivate each shield one at a time as he makes his way through each section, cutting down the commandos one by one. The stress of watching Din go through each section was intense, especially knowing he was doing it without any of his weapons, plus the lack of railings and possibility of him falling to his death. After making their way through the last of the commandos, Din and Grogu finally make it to Gideon's cloning chamber. Now I initially thought there were only 4 tanks, but it turns out Gideon has at least 12. The cloning chamber had an extremely eerie vibe, and I was honestly waiting for one of the clones in the tank to awaken or activate, but nothing happened. Din goes over to the control panel to power down the tanks, while Grogu looks into one of the tanks, revealing they're all clones of Moff Gideon. And then we get that jump scare I was waiting for, seeing the clone suddenly open its eyes at Grogu. As Din and Grogu make their way into the next room, the tanks overload, with the liquid inside busting through the glass, spilling onto the floor, and at this point I wasn't sure if what Din did destroyed or freed the clones. Catching up with Bo and the Mando troops, the Mandalorian survivors' captain leads them to one of the surface caves where they can safely wait for reinforcements, revealing a lush landscape covered in plant life native to the planet, planted by the survivors. Not only was this a surprise to Bo and the others, but to me as well. Like Bo says, we've only ever seen gardens in Mandalore's domed cities, while the rest of the planet's surface appeared barren. I love this little parallel between Mandalore's native plants and the Mandalorians themselves, persisting no matter the odds. This exciting moment is then interrupted by the voice of the Armorer coming through the comms, and y'all know I've had my struggles with the Armorer, but I cannot begin to explain how hyped I got hearing her say, "Lady Kryze, your reinforcements have arrived." The following scenes of the Gauntlet starfighters emerging from the clouds above Mandalore's surface were so cool, and seeing Bo and her troops join them made for some really great shots. The visuals get even better as the rest of the Mandalorians drop from the starfighters, joining the group led by Bo on their way to the Imperial base. We even get an amazing close-up shot of Bo as she ignites the Darksaber, leading the charge, and if y'all hadn't figured it out by now, I am a huge Bo-Katan stan, so this moment was everything for me. This entire sequence actually put the biggest smile on my face as well. Once they fly into the opening of the Imperial base, we get a really amazing sequence that felt right out of one of the Mandalore arcs of the Clone Wars series. Seeing all the Mandalorians flying through the base on their jetpacks, fighting the commandos in the air was just really exhilarating to see in live action, especially after seeing it time and time again in animation. I actually think the way it was shot, however that was, looked so sick. By this point, Din and Grogu have also made it to Gideon's command center as the door behind them shuts and the door in front opens, revealing nothing but Moff Gideon's voice, and he is pissed, explaining his plan to create an army of Force-sensitive clones of himself that are now ruined because of Din. Din is actually the one to attack first, but with his new Beskar Dark Trooper armor, Moff Gideon turns out to be a pretty formidable foe, tossing poor Din around like a rag doll. A little detail that I loved and wanted to point out as well was the fact that during Din and Moff Gideon's fight, we can see the battle between the Mandalorians and the Imperial Commandos in the background, and I thought that was such a nice little addition. Though Moff Gideon continues to have the upper hand, the Praetorian Guards, who I completely forgot were there, emerge just as harrowing as the last episode with Paz. I got really nervous at this point as well because Din was barely putting up a fight against Gideon, so there was no way he could take him on along with 3 Praetorian Guards too. As expected, the guards are easily able to overpower him, but Grogu actually saves him once again, drawing the Praetorian Guards away from Din and into the command center, with Gideon keeping Din from going after them or helping Grogu. Between the guards destroying Grogu's IG suit and Moff Gideon just going in on Din, things were not looking the best for our heroes. Luckily, Bo-Katan literally swoops in, taking out Gideon, telling Din to go save Grogu while she takes care of the Moff. Now this duel is the one I was waiting for, Bo-Katan versus Moff Gideon, and it did not disappoint. We also get Din and Grogu fighting together for the first time against the Praetorian Guards, and as expected, they make a pretty great team. While the battle continues on the ground below, we're reminded of the battle in the sky as the light cruiser comes crashing through the clouds, with Axe Woves telling Bo over the comms that he's going to use it to take out the Imperial base. In a final stand, Bo lets out the most emotional scream, going at Gideon with everything she's got, but he's eventually able to overpower her, destroying the Darksaber in the process. But before he can deal the final blow, Din and Grogu are there to back her up as she says, "Mandalorians are stronger together." Now, I'm honestly kind of happy that the Darksaber was destroyed in this moment, because now not only Bo-Katan but the rest of the Mandalorians will realize they can be leaders without wielding the Darksaber. I feel like Moff Gideon breaking the saber did more good for the Mandalorian people than he intended in the act. As the light cruiser descends closer to the opening of the base, Axe Woves escapes through a window of the bridge, which I was so thankful to see, as the rest of the Mandalorians begin to fly out of the base. Though Bo, Din, and Grogu are still tied up on the ground with Gideon, they continue battling as the cruiser crashes through the base, engulfing all of them in the flames. Now, I really thought this was the end for our heroes as we saw the explosion from outside the base, but as the camera pans into the fire, we can start to make out Grogu using the Force to protect himself, Din, and Bo from the flames. This was such an epic moment between the visuals and the music, and I was definitely on the verge of tears, not even kidding. From here we get a montage of scenes, starting with Ragnar taking the creed in the living waters, Din officially adopting Grogu, Grogu connecting through the Force with the Mythosaur, and Bo-Katan igniting the Great Forge. We also follow Mando and Grogu to the New Republic Adelphi base to speak with Carson Teva about Din becoming an unofficial marshal for the Outer Rim, and retrieving an old IG droid head in return. Then, finally, Din and Grogu travel back to Navarro to lay low for a bit, as Grief Karga puts it, and present Navarro with its new marshal, the newly reconstructed IG-11, ending the season with a shot of Din and Grogu outside their new home together. So I thought this was a really great finale for an okay season, and as I said at the beginning, it wrapped up season 3 pretty well, almost to the point where this felt like a series finale. Was this my favorite season of The Mandalorian? No, but it gave us a lot of amazing moments along the way. This may sound kind of odd, but I really enjoyed seeing Din and even Bo-Katan get beat up in the season. Like, yes, they're the heroes and bound to win, but seeing them get knocked down and get back up time and time again really makes me feel for the characters, connecting and humanizing them. I have no idea what's next for our main characters, but in the future, some other characters I'd like to see more of are Axe Woves and, more specifically, Koska Reeves. Also, now that the armor has finally gained my trust, and I owe her an apology, I'm curious to see where her story goes as well. And lastly, I don't think this is the last we've seen of Moff Gideon. Oh, and one last final thing, I want to see more Bo-Katan. Give her her own show, please. So what did you think of the finale? Do you think Moff Gideon survived, and what do you think of season 3 overall? Let me know in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter so we can chat more about it together. Please consider checking out all my Mando videos at the link in the description and on the end screen of this video as well. I appreciate all of your support so much. To keep up with all my Star Wars content, make sure to subscribe and consider following me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Scotty Holiday SW. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.